That's right, recorded live from the caverns of Southern California. Why do I say the caverns? Because you can call me Cavernario tonight, because I feel just like a caveman.
Uh-oh.
Because the internet in my house has collapsed. And I have said it... What's that?
What happened this time?
I have no idea. The screen is blank with that server not found with a little explanation point in a yellow box to, make it look like it's of great emergence. Which it is. It is of great emergence.
Can't you press a button or something?
Oh, that purple button right there?
Well, you have cable, don't you? How does that work?
We have wireless.
Yeah, DSL, you just click on that little thing you have on the side, and you just turn it on and off, and then it starts all over again.
Yeah, no, I've tried all sorts of stuff. I've tried, Well, the point is,
it's probably something from their end.
Yeah, you know how schooled I am in computers. I just bang on the thing, trying to hope it will. I can bang some sense into it.
What's your internet provider?
My internet provider is Time Warner.
Okay. That explains it.
But I feel like a caveman today because, I've always said, my idea of roughing it, being out in the wild and just really clamping down and roughing it, is to be in a cabin up in the mountains where there's heat, there's hot water, but you only have basic cable, nothing but basic cable. To me, that's playing hardball.
Well, basic cable isn't that bad now. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually, you know what would be better is you get rid of all the channels, just keep the basic and none of the local channels, because none of the local stuff is really that good anyways.
Except for KDOC, because they show old reruns of Hawaii Five-0.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's essential.
Or you get all the Spanish channels. You need all the Spanish channels so you can watch Lucha now. That's
true, yeah.
Is your cable working?
My cable's working fine. My cable's working beautifully. Everything's good except this dang internet. It's weird to think we've only had internet 17 years, and it was such a luxury when we first discovered America Online in 1994. Yeah, in fact, I'll never forget it. Elena's brother Tony came over one night, and he set up America Online for us.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, Elena was recovering from a car accident she'd been in, and so he was, getting it set up for her. So, something to keep her, have something fun to do while she was having to rest up.
Uh-huh.
And it was such an epiphany to us that, you could dial up this number and go online and talk to people live. That was the main thing we used to do back then, was go into the chat rooms.
Yeah.
And it was so amazing to us, and that I'll never forget. We started it must have been 7 or 8 in the evening, and before we knew it, the sun was rising. We'd been up all night.
And that was just answering one question on your chat.
That's right. That's right.
Or downloading a picture.
Type it again. Yeah. It's funny to think now. It's something that I like to come home to every day, and just it's an everyday thing now. It's just weird to think. I know 17 years is actually a long time, but
did you ever use the internet when it used to take an hour to download, to show, you want to see a picture or something, so you click on it.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember I'd be downloading a picture,
it would take an hour.
It would gradually reveal itself. I don't think it ever took an hour or anything, but it took
it seemed like an hour.
It felt like an hour, especially when you're waiting for something really cool. But anyway, that's my excitement for the day, is talking on this antiquated system known as a telephone. I am reliant on no internet. But we are here on Slammin' Stam.
Did you watch any wrestling before the show?
No, I did not. That's a standard answer now, isn't it?
Because we were talking earlier, and you said you were going to try to catch up on something.
I was going to try to catch things, but I got home and my internet was down, and I was like,
Yeah, you spent some time trying to fix that.
Yeah, trying to curse at it and just, say dirty things to it, and it wouldn't cooperate. What the hell? Anyways, so I watched no wrestling, but we are here to discuss all the wrestling that none of us have watched.
Did you watch Raw?
I did not watch Raw. The one thing I did watch, can you guess what one piece of wrestling television I did watch over the past week?
Tough Enough?
100% Lucha.
What?
100% Lucha. If it aired here, yeah, I'd be watching that every night.
That's old anyway. It's all repeat.
This is the Big C Demon joining us, by the way. No, the one thing I did watch, I DVR SmackDown every week just so I can fast forward to see Sin Cara's performance. It was very cool getting to see him wrestle Bryan Danielson.
Who's that?
Oh, some jobber, I think.
I've only known of Daniel Bryan.
Oh yeah, Daniel Bryanson, or the Bryan guy, whatever he's known as this week.
Was it good?
It was good. It was very good. As many people commented, it was a short match. But really good match. They did the angle where Chavo Guerrero helps Sin Cara win the match, and Sin Cara is pissed off because he didn't need his assistance. And so far, I really like the whole Sin Cara aura of the character. It's cool how he's just getting over like gangbusters. But I heard that the latest thing that they're going to do, or that they have been doing in Mexico, is when he wrestles, they have like a spotlight on him, so
they
can barely see
doing that on TV. That he has a blue light, like when Glacier first came to WCW.
Yeah, I don't notice it though. Like I don't really notice. On TV, I don't notice it as much.
Because the way I hear people describing it is all you could see is him, and I didn't see that at all.
Yeah, because I could see.
I probably wouldn't even notice the gimmick.
They must have like really good vision or really bad vision.
Yeah, or really bad memory or something like that.
No,
but the way I've been hearing it described is, I heard in Mexico it's supposed to be even darker, where all you can see is him.
But I mean, that's how Lucha is anyways. Lucha's always in dark places anyway.
Yeah, but the spotlight thing, I mean, why don't they just have him wrestle himself? Wrestle the Invisible Man. They can bring the Invisible
by a split second.
Oh, man. Oh. Well, the Invisible Man hasn't been around since the 1980s. I think it's time we bring him back.
There was an Invisible Man in, was it DDT or was it somewhere else?
Probably DDT. I don't know.
I thought it was DDT, but I've seen some people say online that it was from someplace in China, not Japan. But if you look, there is recent Invisible Man on YouTube, including
there is one,
including a top rope Hurricane Rana by the Invisible Man.
Oh, that must be amazing.
They could have him wrestle a blow-up doll too,
Well, they did.
There you go.
Yeah,
that is the DDT doll, who's awesome, by the way.
Now, what would be cool is if Incredibly Strange Wrestling comes back. We've not done an Invisible Man in Incredibly Strange Wrestling, and what's really cool, I would love to see what Johnny would do with the gimmick, because he would not be content with a mere Invisible Man. He'd have to have a new twist on the gimmick. I know what he'd say. It's been done. Invisible Man has been done several times. He'd have to have an invisibly kinky man, or the
Invisible Trans Man, a female to male, the Invisible Trans Man, an invisible female to male transgendered man.
There you go.
And
that's it.
And the surgeries and the hormones so good you can't tell, or it's that he's invisible.
Yes, and he could wrestle nude and nobody would notice. And the only people who could try to catch him are the kayfabe cops.
The weird thing about Sin Cara is how many guys can he actually work with in WWE when you start watching it? I mean, it just seems kind of weird. Like you're just watching, and you're like, okay, he's gone through Daniel Bryan already, so that pretty much ends the whole thing right there.
Yeah, who knows where the whole thing's gonna go? But it's fun while it's happening. We'll see.
think the idea is that that Chavo, once they start feuding, Chavo is a guy who can do lucha style, but can also teach him WWE style because he's considered a reliable veteran who will never fire because he knows where various bodies are buried. Not literally. Although it probably has to do with bodies that he knows the location of. It's just not that the secrets in question are about the location of the bodies.
I like where it's going. So
that's the only wrestling you watched, Kurt?
That's the only wrestling I watched all week long.
You don't watch TNA like I told you to watch? Just kidding. They're going to be in Mexico for Triple Mania.
I heard that they're going to be working with AAA, and there's already jokes about the storylines clashing because they're both going to try to outdo each other and making no sense.
Well, they have a stacked card though. They have a really good card, but it's like too many big matches though on one show. But I mean, hey, that's Triple Mania for you.
The last thing I read, I thought was hilarious. That Conan did a promo about how he hated being in TNA because Jeff Jarrett is a racist, and
that's
how now he can just do that. Now that they're working together again, he can do promos on AAA TV to say what he's banned from saying in real life.
Oh Lord!
From the terms of the settlement.
Oh my Lord!
That's how they're working together.
That should be good though. Conan, I mean Jeff Jarrett, he might. I haven't watched TNA, but Jeff Jarrett in AAA is pretty good though.
Yeah, it's just amazing how I don't have the curiosity even.
The rest of AAA, like Triple Mania, the one match that everybody's interested in watching is the main event. El Mesias versus LA Park. They're having
that I'm curious to see.
Yeah, Mask versus Hair, but like everything else isn't really that interesting. Like Dr. Wagner Jr. versus Rob Van Dam. I mean, Rob Van Dam.
That's oddly intriguing to me.
Yeah, there's going to be intrigue in that because ECW is pretty big in Mexico. WWE, all that stuff is big in Mexico, but it's like, I think it's intriguing to like a certain number of people.
I don't think it probably won't be a good match, but if it's bad, it'll probably be bad in an interesting enough way.
Well, I think it's probably going to be like the Sabu Dr. Wagner Jr. match, where people are more curious and to watch them two wrestle.
But Sabu's a better fit in AAA than Van Dam is.
Oh yeah, that's true. And Sabu's been there a lot more often too. So
yeah.
And before we proceed,
it's like, who is this?
Fredo and who is he? Fredo
and
I. It just dawned on us that we never mention till nearly the end of the show LuchaWorld.com and SlamBamJam.com.
The other thing we never mentioned.
What's that?
Keep going.
It's the place you go to get some of the coolest Lucha Libre news. This is Fredo's site, LuchaWorld.com, and then Slam Bam Jam, where you can get the most bitchin' array of DVDs available today. It is also the place where you can get the totally even bitchiner Lucha World t-shirt that features Lucky Pierre, Fisico Nuclear, Kung Fu, Frankenstein, and the Convict. If you have not been there, if you have not bought one, go there and buy one. I command you.
The other thing we haven't told people is that they could download the show on iTunes.
That's right. Yes, this is available on iTunes. You can usually download it very shortly after, we take part in the conference here.
Very, very shortly. I mean, they used to give me a break. They used to let me do it add music to it, and now they just add it right away. So it's pointless now. I'm serious. They don't let me add music right away. They just put it up right away, and it's okay.
Trip out. Yeah, so iTunes is a good way to nab the show. I think you were mentioning another avenue, a good place to grab this show, didn't you?
For what? Yeah, archive.org.
What is it called?
Archive.org.
Archive.org.
Yeah.
anyone who does a podcast, I mean, especially if you're doing a pre-recorded podcast like I've done most of mine, archive.org is absolutely where you should upload it, because, I mean, otherwise, like, before I realized I could do it there, even when I was doing the podcast more frequently, and I was paying for hosting space because I wasn't really thinking where I could upload to do a functional podcast. But at archive.org, as long as it's content you own, they'll host it for you.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Really.
And another one we want to always plug Bix's interviews. He has some great interviews. People including my two personal favorites are his interviews with Cassandro and Lance Russell.
Two Lance Russell interviews, actually.
Oh, do you have two Lance Russell interviews on there?
Yeah.
I got to pay another visit.
Yeah.
And you've interviewed a score. Who are some of the other folks that you have on your site? I know you did Gypsy Joe.
Let's see, Gypsy Joe. That one didn't go that well. I mean, it was kind of amusing, but it wasn't especially good interview.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see, like Lance Russell.
J.J. Dillon.
Oh yeah, J.J. Dillon. That's a really good one. Although I had a cold and I'm constantly breathing into the mic throughout, so just ignore that part. And otherwise, it's a very good interview.
So people don't get the wrong idea on that.
Ross Hart, CM Punk, Colt Cabana a few times.
Vic, you've interviewed Ross Hart. Ross Hart.
That's a very good one.
You did, right?
Yeah.
Have you do you know a little bit about Smith Hart?
I know about Smith Hart. I've never talked to Smith Hart.
Oh, okay. No, I'm just wondering because Ryan's asking me about it.
What?
Ryan's asking about it on the chat.
Oh, why isn't Ryan on the phone?
Oh, he'll call in later.
He shall be here shortly. He shall be here shortly.
I think Dan's on already, so.
Yeah, yes, I am, actually. I was just waiting for the proper moment. I love the music that signifies that you're on Talk Shoe. It sounds like I'm getting like a traffic update or something,
Yeah.
How you guys doing?
Oh, and by the way, though, I'm in the process of setting up. I probably shouldn't say who it is just yet, in case it doesn't go through. But I am in the process of setting up an interview with a very big name in wrestling history, probably. Just to give a hint, you could probably say maybe the biggest name in my region of the country.
Oh. Dr. Benjamin Roller.
Okay, Dan, you just came up with a great idea, something that has never been done on a wrestling podcast.
What's that?
We could have a seance.
Are you sure that's never been done? Are you sure that's never been done? It sure sounds like it would be.
Speaking of the old-time wrestlers, I was cruising on YouTube, and maybe everybody else has seen this, but I certainly haven't.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It was the training film from 1929.
Oh, it's not.
It's the training camps of Gus Sonnenberg and then the training camp of Ed Strangler Lewis. And it's hysterical. I think the first 30 seconds of the video, Gus Sonnenberg is just sitting there making muscles, and somebody says something like, okay, squeeze those arms, Gus, okay, flex those muscles, and then they go to Strangler Lewis's training camp, and they actually have a brief mic work by Ed Strangler Lewis. I never heard audio of that guy before. I assumed none even existed. And he doesn't say anything like groundbreaking, but he just kind of he had a much more intellectual voice than I pictured him having. Saying something like that, like wrestling is the best workout for the body, and so if nobody's seen that.
No, I haven't seen that. Did he have the headlock machine?
No, damn it. That would have made it perfect.
Every time I look at Ed Strangler Lewis, I think of Ed Asner. Seriously, that's what I think he looks like.
No, he did look like Ed Asner, especially once he got older, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. That's funny.
Now we can have check out. Now we can have another wrestling movie starring Ed Asner.
There we go. I love that, but especially I love that scene where they're all sitting around poolside and having the meeting.
and all the NWA promoters.
Yeah, exactly. And after everybody else is sitting there in jacket and tie, for some reason Ed's not wearing his shirt. I have no idea why, but he's just sitting there. And he goes, "Listen, McMahon," and starts talking to Vince Sr. It's hysterical, that movie is.
It's funny, and the greatest scene is when was it Tosh Togo is starting to make trouble in the bar, and the bartender says the classic line that guarantees there's going to be trouble when he says, "I don't want any trouble."
Yeah, that's always.
And then, of course, Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch save the day.
That's right, exactly.
Exactly. What was the line? Something like karate weak, or no, karate strong, wrestling weak.
Well, do you know what? In a way, though, what's nice about it, because it is a really stupid movie.
Totally.
I think when I saw it, I think it had to be, 71, 72, something like that, I think it is. So I was
somewhere around there.
I was like a teenager, and at that time, virtually every movie is good to some extent.
Well, wait, how widely released was it?
I remember that it was. They advertised it a lot on I guess all the wrestling shows advertised it, ran trailers for it or whatever. Because I remember watching the WWF show in Baltimore, and they ran a trailer for it, and the only place it was playing was like downtown or someplace. It was like one theater.
Yeah, I picture it in the theater just adjacent to the movie house showing The Mysterious Monsters or In Search of Historic Jesus.
Or Scream, Blackula Scream, or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
But I tell you, though, the thing that's the thing I like about it, though, is that, again, it gives you a chance to see some guys that may not have a lot. I mean, granted, there is a video available of like Superstar Graham and other people like that. But, for example, to hear Bruiser, most of the time the stuff with Bruiser and Crusher is usually the film highlights from the arenas. And this gives you a chance to hear them and hear part of how they talked and what they did. And that really does, I think, kind of help out a little bit. And really, weren't Murdoch and Rhodes at that time, weren't they still heels, or had they turned by that time?
I'm guessing. Well, I mean, they're baby faces in the movie, but
yeah, they must have by that time. Yeah, you know what it is? I always consider this as when the minute that Dusty started to get the curly little fro is when he started turning face. When he has the slick back hair, it's always. And I guess that he used to. I remember talking to a friend who grew up in the Minnesota area, and he wasn't a wrestling fan, but when we started, we did a bunch of interviews with a bunch of wrestlers for a TV show, and he started talking about when he was a kid, he hated Dusty Rhodes. Because I guess Dusty Rhodes, in a way, kind of did, what Bubba Ray Dudley does. He would start with a little bit of that, like a tick or a stutter when he started to talk to get the heat or whatever. But he hated them growing up.
Wow. And that's one of the things I don't even know if any audio or video of Dusty in his heel days is around. I mean,
as an interviews, I don't think so. Video, yeah. I mean, matches.
Oh,
yeah. You got a lot of matches. In fact, there's a great little. I don't think it's even around anymore, but I have a DVD that came out maybe 10 years ago called I think it was called The Dream, and it mostly was.
That CD is great.
You're in that. It's mostly arena highlights from Florida, but it gives you a chance to see him in his prime, really, before.
Yeah.
Before he got
it. Promos too.
Yeah, there are some in there. That's right. There are some in there too. But it's funny how I remember. I first started reading the Observer after WrestleMania 3. So that would be like toward the late 80s.
87 then, yeah.
Yeah. And it's always so funny because when everybody talks about Dusty now, or even Hogan to some extent, it's very, because they remember them growing up and it's very fondly and I'm not saying that it shouldn't be, but they remember very fondly. But do you remember, Kurt, from reading the Observer at that time? Everybody hated Dusty. Everybody hated Hogan, mainly because they looked at Hogan as ruining everything in professional wrestling, and Dusty was just despised because of his booking and a lot of what he did with the Crockett's. And it's so funny now you turn around and, here were two guys that were, I mean, at the most you can feel sorry for Hogan now because it's just so sad. But in general, those two guys were really hated, and it was like to be fans of them back then. You were laughed at by smart fans, and now you look at guys, and for some reason, a lot of the older guys, like Mick Foley and Jim Cornette or whatever, they were loved and idolized back at that time, and now a lot of people really aren't big fans of them.
Well, in fact, it's interesting you say that because I remember shortly before that time, the babyface a lot of smart fans couldn't stand was Tommy Rich. And I knew somebody who was friends with Jim Cornette, and it's so funny. Everybody assumed that Cornette wasn't, wasn't keen on the people the smart fans weren't keen on too. But Cornette would be really defensive because I think he thought at the time Rich was one of the most talented people in the art of being a babyface, not so much as a wrestler but a babyface. And it's funny how people, when you're a smart fan, you kind of, at least back in that day, you kind of assume people are thinking along the same wavelength are you, and
they still are that way.
Yeah, well, and the interesting thing about Dusty Rhodes is I knew a lot of people back in the day who hated Dusty Rhodes, yet they would begrudgingly give him, salutations of a kind. I mean, they almost wanted to like him, but they couldn't stand that he was booking himself on top.
Yeah.
And I can kind of dig that. I think that's why.
Yeah, and let's face it though, if people disliked every wrestler who ever booked themselves on top, there's a lot of wrestlers that would be hated because there were a lot of guys that did that stuff, and we saw that out here with guys like Louis Tilley, and we saw that and there's other guys we joke about Goulas all the time. But that's another situation, or pushing, or Greg Gagne, by any way, shape, or form, should never have gotten any way farther than the middle of the card. When you watch him,
he wasn't a good worker.
Well, he wasn't, but he just was bland. Yeah. I mean, he threw a great drop kick. He knew how to work, but he was just. I mean, they did that whole. I remember that whole thing. The first time I saw him, it was when the AWA first started appearing on ESPN, when they had that roller derby wrestling doubleheader. And they were doing that thing at that point where Gagne and Brunzell had been taken under Sergeant Slaughter's wing, and now they were wearing the camouflage and the camo headbands and whatever.
Well, and Gagne had the cut-off shirt.
Yes, exactly. Oh, God, it was a belly shirt. Yeah, and then Brunzell left. So it looked even worse now because here would come out Gagne with the belly shirt and the stuff, and the first thing he went into was well, my partner couldn't take it around here, so he up and left, and and so now I'm here on my own, and then they cut the stuff of Slaughter, doing road work with this guy or whatever, and I would say that virtually, they did the angle all over the place where Slaughter took everyone under his wing, from Don Kernodle on down to Terry Daniels and whatever, and it never looked more unbelievable than it did with Greg Gagne.
Well, Greg Gagne though, they had a skit too, where a lot of people have seen them because so many people have seen the Sergeant Slaughter video that AWA put out.
Yeah.
But it's just it's weird stuff where he's screaming at Gagne, "Do you love me? Do you love me?"
Well, I'll never forget when AWA first started hitting the West Coast in, I think it was '82. They're mainly hitting the Cow Palace in San Francisco, and I went with some friends up there to see one of the shows. And when Greg Gagne was wrestling, we're just yes, so what? But one of the friends I was with, he was one of the classic old school smart fans who loved all the heels, liked to boo the babyface, the poor Ruda of the time. And he just said, if he wasn't the promoter's son, don't you think Greg Gagne would make a great, arrogant heel? And I sat there thinking, yeah, it's a shame it will never happen. Didn't he look like he could do the role?
When you think about it, would Mike Von Erich have ever entered professional wrestling if he wasn't a Von Erich?
Oh man, he was awful too. So.
Oh, I bet he wishes he didn't have to.
Well, someone else who would have, another son of a promoter who would have made a great heel but never did was Mike Graham.
I knew you were going to say Mike Graham.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because he's such a dislikable prick.
He can't help it. He can't help it. That guy, it's kind of like I always hear the stories about how Steamboat always wanted to turn face, and Pat Patterson would say, Ricky, no one's going to buy it. No one's going to buy it. And that's the same thing with Mike Graham. I don't know how anybody ever bought him as a face. Because he just looked like a dick that way.
Yeah.
I saw a picture from, when was the last time he wrestled? Was it at Wrestle Reunion?
Wrestle Reunion.
Yeah, he wrestled in Wrestle Reunion, and
he did well for the match. 60 years old.
Tattoos now.
Oh, I know.
That he has flames on his shoulders.
Yeah.
That look like he put on with a magic marker.
Yeah, he started out with Danny Davis, and Davis still had the moves and still looked really good.
Wait,
and
Danny Davis or Nightmare Danny Davis?
Crooked referee Danny Davis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mike Graham looked about 3 steps behind Danny Davis.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, he's not a young guy anymore. And it's always funny because when you hear him on like some of those roundtable WWE shows, and everybody heard the story about how he was instrumental in Benoit and Guerrero and those guys all leaving WCW and going to the WWE. And the fact is that, because I think, didn't he threaten to cut their heads off or something at one point?
Yeah. Well, in hindsight,
it's Benoit's head off.
Yeah, I was going to say, in hindsight,
he probably
it would have been a wise choice.
Yikes.
Graham sits at home and goes, "Whew, I dodged that bullet, man. I had no idea."
Oh, yeah, I remember Phil talking about it. I think maybe like right after Benoit died, that like guys like Nash and Mike Graham must have been had this like bully that picked on the kid who then shot up the school reaction.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's interesting. I was listening to one of the Carl Stern programs, the newest one today, on the Observer site, and excuse me, and he was talking about someone had asked the question of, there's often talks like Steamboat was always a face and never was a heel. Was there ever anyone who was a heel and never a face? And I thought about that for the longest time. And at first I thought, well, the Iron Sheik, but no, he started out as a face at one point. I would think the only person I could think of
the baby face is Khosrow Bazir.
Yeah, the only person I could think of, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, unless it was a special occasion. I know in Japan they loved him, but was the Ed Farhat Sheik? Was he always
exactly what I was going to say? The Sheik.
He must have always been, because he's like the only guy that I could think of, because and the only way I would think that he would maybe be do it is if they did one of those angles like Lawler used to do down in Memphis, where all of a sudden I went out and got the meanest, nastiest guy in the entire world to be my partner, and here he is, and then he would bring in, they could bring in Abdullah or Pampero Firpo or somebody like that. But I don't think anyone ever did that with the Sheik.
No, and the Sheik was a guy who can make any other heel into a babyface for one night. When he took on Abdullah or George Steele or anybody like that.
Well, he was the face against Ox Baker, though, for the stuff that they used in I Like to Hurt People.
Was he?
I haven't seen him for a long time. Was he a face in that one?
Yes, he was the de facto baby face in that one.
Oh,
at least it seemed like that was.
I guess maybe because the footage was in Detroit, and maybe he has something there.
Because remember,
by the way, we should mention that there is another voice on the podcast right now. Ryan Doyle is here, but we have not introduced him yet.
I'm here.
that new very charismatic voice there is that of Ryan Doyle.
Yes, glad to be here.
Very glad to have you here. And before we go into another subject, I want to point out my what I thought was the funniest scene in the movie The Wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
Was when Ray Stevens kills his opponent.
I knew you were going to say that.
With his knee drop.
Well, he didn't actually murder him, kill him. He killed him in the ring accidentally.
In the ring, but what I love is the doctor pronounces him dead in the middle of the ring in front of the audience, and then they have a 10 count, a moment of silence for him while his body is laying there.
Yeah, and don't they throw a towel over his face or whatever when he's laying? And the announcer takes the microphone and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have some sad news to report. So and so has died." And they go to this dun 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 music, and they cut to all these pictures of all the people in there, and then from a long shot, you see Stevens like turn and go and just walk out of the ring right that way.
I just love that scene. That's the one scene I think I played several times when I saw it. It was priceless.
And you can see where that comes from, because it was one of those conceits they would have to do. And let's put in a scene where somebody dies in the ring to show people that this is serious sports.
How dangerous it is. How
dangerous. It's the same thing that I ran into when we did the Secrets of Pro Wrestling, how all of a sudden the guys wanted to do a thing where they said, well, if you think it's so easy to do, why don't you come after us? Why don't you try it?
And the way they delivered it, it absolutely made no sense what they were saying.
It made no sense. And they were all standing there, and I was standing with one of the old timers there, and we just looked at each other like, well, why do they want to do that? Because it takes away from what the whole process is. But they were all panicky. They wanted to do it, so they shot one. I remember they said to me, "Do you want to get in the ring with them?" I said, "No, I'll stay out here. I don't want to go in there for this. Let them go and do that."
I knew several people who, when they watched that Secrets of Pro Wrestling, they weren't people familiar with pro wrestling, although they knew the local scene well enough to recognize you and Danny Wolf right off the bat.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget them asking me after the show, saying, "Oh, that show was a hoot. That was a kick." He says, "But we have no idea what the wrestlers were talking about at the end of the show. What were they trying to say?" And I sat there saying, I think they were trying to say something about how they're legitimately tough or something, but to be honest, even I don't know.
That used to be the whole thing. But prior to, I don't know if you saw it, but I put up a little blurb yesterday how on Tuesday they released the second season of The Bionic Woman on DVD, and it has an episode called "In This Corner, Jamie Summers." And
I remember that episode.
Well, I watched it now yesterday, and Gene LaBelle is the referee, and they shot the whole thing at the Olympics, so you get to see the Olympic in the middle of its prime, at that point.
Nice.
I remember that. And there's that lady wrestler. There's that lady wrestler who they buy her a wrestling school at the end.
Yeah, no, it's not a wrestling school. It's actually they buy her like a massage resort place or whatever, something like that. A spa.
Oh.
But also, you can see Sandy Parker, your old friend, playing Battling Betty. That's always one of the fun parts they do whenever anybody does who doesn't know anything about wrestling does a movie or a TV show about wrestling. They go nuts with alliteration.
Yeah.
Totally.
Battling Benny, Canvas Carl, or something like that. They always go nuts with that stuff.
The Masked Marvel.
Yeah, and they did. And actually, what's really funny was they had a woman called the Spider Woman, whose outfit was exactly the same as the character the WWE used in the 80s. Looked exactly like it. And they were doing, and it was so funny because it had that whole, she was going to go undercover because the evil promoter at the Olympic, no, it wasn't Mike LaBelle. The evil promoter at the Olympic was actually Mr. Roper, Norman Tell.
Were they investigating him for
No, what they
investigating him for making wisecracks about his wife all the time?
And then laughing at his own jokes.
No, what they would do is one of the male wrestlers was living with two of the female wrestlers, and he was pretending to be gay.
That's right.
Come on, tap on my mat. Yeah, exactly. That could be the theme.
We'll be headlocking you.
It's funny because it's one of those. It's like the guys are sitting around and saying, "Well, we got to think of something where we can put her in a sexy outfit. We'll make her a wrestler." And they send her. So what she does is it's supposed to be in Washington D.C., but they call it they refer to it as the Olympic Auditorium several times. And
I love it.
And they go, and so you see it, and it's 1976, and they have a long shot from outside, and the marquee was on. I freeze framed it, and it says, of course, boxing on Thursday, roller derby Saturday, and it says Friday night Guerrero versus Fargo.
Awesome.
So that would have been Chavo Guerrero against Fonzo Fargo at that point.
Don Fonzo Fargo, when somebody brilliant came up with the idea of having Don Fargo act like Fonzie and giving the thumbs up and going, hey.
Okay, no. Okay. You have to tell me everything about this because I've never heard of it.
Oh, you never heard of Fonzo Fargo?
No, I've never heard of it either.
Oh, so what he did was he wore motorcycle boots and the black pants, and he wore the black leather jacket, and he wore like a hat usually, like something from the Village People, like that motorcycle hat. And he would come in the ring, and they would go, Don Fonzo Fargo, and he would go, hey, with the thumbs up and everything.
He was sort of the original Deuce and Domino.
Yeah, exactly. And what he would do is his finishing move usually was he would distract the referee, and then he would slam his opponent's head into his belt buckle. Which was great as long as he was wrestling someone that was shorter than he was. And if you know Don Fargo, that's kind of hard because he was a little guy. I think I remember seeing him beat like Judo Mike Adams like 12 or 13 times because, Mike Adams was like 4'11". But, yeah, this was the thing. I don't think he was ever intended to be anything more than mid-card. He didn't hang, like most of the guys at that time frame, he didn't hang around long. But
in fact, they did the angle at the very end where he turns babyface and has a loser leave town with Piper.
Yeah, that's right.
Wait, why was Fonzie a heel?
I don't know.
You got me. It was weird. They call him Fonzo Fargo. He would give you the thumbs up and go, hey, but he was from Hell's Kitchen, New York, and it made no sense. The Bionic Man was more credible than this gimmick.
Well, by the time 76 came around, they were really starting to, at that point, kind of...
Or Robot C3.
Yeah, they were probably getting all their gimmicks wrong, like all the...
Yeah. That was kind of the beginning of the end.
Yeah,
but to go back to the Bionic Woman, because it's so hysterical.
Wait, was Tom Ernesto booking when Fonzo was around?
No, that wouldn't have been... I don't think it was. That might have been.
I think that was Louis Tilley. Back then?
It had to be Tilley because I don't think it doesn't sound like Garibaldi. So it had to be Louis Tilley.
Wasn't Tilley gone by 76? I thought his
right around that time.
Because I thought
I thought he went from Florida to. He went from Florida to LA, right?
Yeah. And he was on his way to Portland, and he stopped it by and stayed for a while. But I think it was January '76 is when he came in. So it was probably
75 because that's when the Blondes were around. Was in 75.
Yeah.
Okay, so it must have been.
It couldn't have been Garibaldi. You know what? We need to get Jeff Walton on the horn and ask him this because I want to know who came up with all those booking ideas, like Roddy Piper quit smoking night.
Yes.
Where people came to be they had an evening where the fans could be hypnotized by Roddy Piper and he could help them quit smoking.
Can he help R-Truth?
That was the old Garibaldi, right? I think Piper mentions that in the book that Garibaldi was booking at the time.
It must be that, because it must have been just the changeover at that point. Well, let's see. Happy Days would have started around 74.
Mm-hmm.
So he would be at the tail end. Or it also, it could be stock footage that was old, too.
Yeah,
stock footage.
Yeah, it could have been something they shot for a while ago, and they just had it, in stock for whatever at ABC or Universal where they were shooting. But
that's true.
It's hysterical too because what happens is, of course, they send her to go undercover just to kind of check into this whole thing, and she doesn't want to do it because she's nonviolent. Okay, so she goes down there, and it's so funny now because Oscar, her boss, has a TV set in his desk. Built into his desk, and he's watching stuff. And then the whole idea is the evil promoter of women's wrestling has some sort of something that the Russians want, and he's going to use he's using the wrestling matches as a cover to pass this off to another spy. And so it's one of those wonderful things they do where she goes down there and they kind of, it's weird because they kind of act like in the beginning like it's real. But then all of a sudden, like halfway through it, they go to the gym there at the Olympic, and you see two of the women working, and Norman Fell's there going, "No, pound the mat harder. Make it look like you're in more pain," which I thought was kind of weird for that time frame that they would, but I guess maybe because it was women's wrestling and it wasn't supposed to be that they might not worry about it, but because it looked like mostly, I couldn't tell, I was looking to see who was stunt working for Lindsay Wagner, and I couldn't tell, but I'm going to guess that these were probably Mildred Burke's girls.
Very likely, because they actually got a lot of work.
Yeah, they got a lot of TV work at that time. So they do this whole thing, and then so what they do is they say, "Oh, well, can you do anything?" So she gets in the ring and she does a couple things, and they love it. So of course a spot is opened up, so she's now going to be in the match on the live match that night. So they go outside to the parking lot and they shoot an interview where and they decided they put her in a little Indian woman midriff cutoff thing and call her Savage Summers.
Did Gene LaBelle do the interview?
No, Gene was the referee for the main event, because here's what the deal was. They took the thing, whatever the gimmick they needed to get to the past the Russians. This Russian woman spy during a big brawl rolls under the ring and trades costumes with the Spider Woman. And that's how she's supposed to try to escape and defect and take the information with her. And Gene is the referee. And what's funnier is, but it gives you a chance to see all the Olympic stuff. And what's really funny is they capture her at one point and they lock her up in the old rat cage that they used to suspend the managers and the seconds of it, and they suspend her over the ring in that.
The rat cage was classic.
Yeah. But it's worth it to pick up the set just for that episode. They have a Bigfoot episode in there, but it's not Andre the Giant by that time. By that time, it's Ted Cassidy, who played Lurch in Addams Family. But
yes.
This was the Bionic Woman only ran 3 seasons. It was a mid season. The first season, as the second season was a full season, and then they were going to cancel it, but NBC picked it up and ran the third season. But all they really ever did was they go, okay, well, this week we're going to make her a dancer. This week we're going to make her do this. So it was just every week she would go undercover in some sort of sexy outfit.
She's the jack of all trades.
Yeah, so I was hoping there was commentary on this one. There was not, unfortunately. But it's well worth it. We're renting if you can get it through Netflix, or even you can get it for probably under $30 if you look around for it. It's worth it just for that one episode.
Very cool.
Okay, I need to bring something to all of your attention, especially Kurt, because I'm curious if you would like to watch this as a television show. The latest issue of New York Magazine, which came out last week, and I guess the new one comes out tomorrow, but a lot of this stuff is on the website to check out. It's all about TV shows and the TV showrunners and creators and all that. And there's all sorts of different stuff. They have unedited interviews on the website, but lots of stuff in the magazine. And one section was about pitches that people had made, either that they had heard about or that they made themselves. One was the creators of How I Met Your Mother, talking about how when they were on the Letterman writing staff, they proposed a sketch that was Don Rickles makes fun of animals at the zoo.
What?
Okay. Yes, and that was the whole sketch, but it didn't get on the air. So anyway, another writer decided not to talk about something that he pitched that got rejected, but something that he heard about. That there is a real script out there for a show called Time Jack. It is about a guy who time travels every time he masturbates.
Oh, I heard about that.
Now,
Fredo's heard about this.
Why didn't they pick that one up?
Okay,
That's
well,
awesome.
you know, here's the genius to it, okay? So, let's say he winds up in the, surrounded by dinosaurs or something. He can just do his business and hop somewhere else. Now, what if he ends up someplace that he likes? He can't masturbate at all.
Oh, my gosh.
And he can only go back in time twice a day at the most. Yeah.
So and this show was never picked up. Wow.
No. That sounds awesome.
I know.
But I wish I thought of it.
It's like a porno version of Doctor Who.
or couldn't you picture Couldn't you picture the end of The Wizard of Oz where Dorothy is saying, "There's no place like home"? Oh, there's no place like home. Yes, there's no place like home.
Or I think what would be even better is you see the hero of this show get trapped, like, you know, at a dead end wall or something with the female lead, and you see the dinosaurs coming toward him, and he turns to her and goes, "Hang on a second, I'll get us out of here." And she's like, "What the hell are you doing now?
The dinosaur's coming at him, and he's dreaming of Raquel Welch and 10 million BC.
I like the Doctor Who idea, though, because then he can call his penis the target.
Yeah. What was the show called? Did it have a title?
Time Jack.
Time Jack.
Oh, that's great. Time Jack.
This cannot be a true story.
Well, they have to. They have to. Somebody has to pick that up.
I linked to it on Twitter, so if you look at my Twitter account, which is David Pick, so I linked to the article.
That's
Time
wonderful.
Jack. But can he control where he goes?
Google searching this.
He can't control where he goes. He controls whether or not he time travels.
Okay, so for example, if he wanted to go way back in time, it would be a rather large explosion. And if he wanted just to go back like a few years, it could just be something really short.
They didn't go that far.
Okay.
They didn't think about that.
It's just whether or he controls whether or not he travels through time.
Yeah, I mean they don't want to be crass, Dan. I mean, come on.
He arrives at a new place and the guy says, "Can I shake your hand?" No, I don't think it's a good idea.
Not yet. Let me go clean up.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love it. Oh, man.
Oh, my God. Is that Peach's page?
Where?
What?
Oh,
Bix, what are you doing over there? You trying to time travel? What are you doing?
Wait.
Bix, where'd you go? Bix has disappeared. He's gone somewhere back in time.
He's in the 18th century. Wow.
Next episode, Peach's page meets Peter North in the reptilian age.
Bix just goes back in time to meet old wrestlers. That's what he does, you know.
Oh, that's...
You have to talk about your recent match.
Oh, yeah. We need to talk about Lucky Pierre versus Nikki the New York Knockout.
Yeah, and how he blew up really bad.
I just realized that if we finally end up eventually having this next incredibly strange wrestling show, we can have the debut of Time Jack.
There you go.
It'll be a guy named Jack.
Boy, the people in the front row are not going to be happy with their seats.
Well, Time Jack will wrestle Lucky Pierre, and then suddenly Time Jack vanishes into another era, and he's counted out, you know? Oh, but the last MPW show, Up and Down, was, I think, one of the best ones they've run yet. I love working...
And they're too fan-friendly. It's too family-friendly to have Time Jack.
Those shows are, right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, did you watch the entire show?
What's that?
You watched the entire show?
No, I only watched Tozawa. I'm talking about as far as the way things ran and with how happy everybody was.
You didn't think Dan was all upset the entire time.
What's that?
Dan was upset the entire time.
About what?
Oh, it was the happiest I ever saw Dan.
I was very happy. Everybody moved along. Everybody hit their time.
Yeah, stressed every time, so it doesn't really...
I always look annoyed. That's just me. That's part. Now, of course, I found out later if the guy who was supposed to pick up the ring had showed up on time, it would have been a lot better. But, you know, the guy who they rented the ring from showed up an hour and a half late, and supposedly the excuse was he got on the freeway and went the wrong way. Well, wouldn't you, after a couple miles, start to realize you're going the wrong way at that point? hey, we're going away from Simi Valley. We're headed toward, it doesn't make sense. But no, the show was really good. It was it went real smooth. There was no extra added drama or anything. Kurt had a great match with Nikki.
I loved working with Nikki.
Yes, and she loved working with you. And he lost, of course.
Yes, of course.
Of course. Well, he had to.
Yeah, of course. Lucky Pierre isn't going to beat a woman.
When's the last time you won?
Last time I won,
well,
let's see.
He won as Vandal Drummond.
No, I know.
Out in San Bernardino, but not as Lucky Pierre. Lucky Pierre hasn't.
Oh, he did win in San Bernardino. That's right.
Yeah, but that was Vandal Drummond.
Last time Lucky Pierre won a match was on the Johnny Letton show in 2007.
That's right.
So,
who did Lucky Pierre beat that night?
Physico Nuclear, and then he later teamed with Physico to defeat the tag team duo of Don't Ask and Don't Tell.
Did you wrestle on Ricardo Rodriguez?
What's that?
You didn't wrestle Ricardo Rodriguez, right?
No, it was Don't Ask and Don't Tell was the team of Scott Snott and Angela Luxottico, and they were awesome.
Tell me that they were flamboyantly gay soldiers.
No, they were soldiers who were badass, two masked soldiers, and they hated the people like Lucky Pierre who were tearing away the beautiful macho image that the military can put forth. That was a fun gig. But no, working with Nikki was awesome. I was slightly apprehensive because when I'm working with somebody younger, I sit there saying, okay, I'm much older, and I can probably not keep up with the high spots these kids are doing today. And met her, and I said, we're working together tonight. She says, very cool. And I said to her, well, what would you like to do? And she says, I've worked a lot, and I'm really sore. And I'm saying, I gave her my old line, well, that's fine. We'll lock up. I'll blow up. We'll go home. And we were fast friends. No, it was really cool because she was really into working the storyline of the match and, wasn't obsessed with trying to get a 4 or 5 star match. It was another night.
Was Lucky Pierre a gentleman when he wrestled her and didn't take advantage and touch her any place?
Why would he? It's Lucky Pierre.
Oh, well, there. In fact, that's what we're talking about. I can't remember who it was. I can't remember if it was Andy Durasso or Brandon came up and made a comment about Pierre's sexuality. And she says, oh, so we could do a bunch of spots where you're repulsed. And I'm saying everybody forgets Lucky Pierre, he's not straight. He's not gay. He's a pervert. He's a slut. Like it says on the trunk, I am a slut. Yes. So I went to give flowers to Barry, which he slapped away, and then I molested Barry. And then Nikki starts trashing me, and whenever I got the upper hand, I'd go perv on her, and she was easy to work with, very smooth worker.
Mm-hmm.
And I proudly sold the clothesline for her. I hadn't sold a clothesline in many, many years.
Yeah, I was quite surprised by that.
I love selling a clothesline where it looks like it should be a finishing move. That's one of the moves I kind of wish hadn't turned into a high spot, because when somebody finishes somebody with a clothesline, it just looks like they clean their clock.
Yeah.
I think if you do it that way, though, it still works as a finish.
Yeah,
I agree.
Certain people can get away with it.
Yeah,
I agree.
Bradshaw, or when actually they had Batista doing it for a little while at one point, and it worked.
I think you could take almost any move that is that in the last 15 years is a high spot move. I think you can turn any move into a finishing hold if you're doing it correctly. I mean, the elbow smash, The Rock turned that into a finishing move once again. And I think that's how you prevent it. But no, Nikki was wonderful to work with, very nice gal. And, yeah, like I said, I went in kind of thinking, is this going to be somebody I'm going to have to, quickly improve my cardio in no time and try to keep up with. But she was a very smooth worker, wasn't rushed, and, would be totally up working with her again. She's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen. I think there's some tag situations we might do in the future, and I think also this one I've been pushing to have this match put on. We finally have gotten the DVD situation cleared up. So I believe that I'm pushing to have this match on the DVD.
Very cool. Oh, I would like that.
Just because the fact that if you look at the way the show was put together on that Saturday night, we had matches that pushed along storylines. We had matches that were just matches. We had a comedy match. We had a really good four-way match.
Yeah,
and with a lot of high spots to it. And then you had Tozawa and Ryan Taylor, which was very much a Japanese-style match.
That was a magnificent match.
That was a great match. Tozawa just blows me away every time I see him.
Me too. That match is up on YouTube, isn't it?
I believe that one is, actually.
Oh, it is?
Ryan Taylor,
At least portions of it.
and Tozawa.
Who put that up?
That was a wonderful, wonderful match.
You guys put that up or somebody else?
I'm not quite sure, but whatever. All I heard was it's okay.
Oh, you're fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
that was
I can take my camcorder now?
And food, and bring food into the building too.
Yeah, bring some food into the building and the camcorder. I'll bring a giant coat with me, so I'll make sure.
From Subway. But no, I thought, like I said it was one of the best shows, but I wasn't saying just on sheer match quality, but everybody ran on time. Everybody across the board in the dressing room seemed in totally good spirits. And it seemed for you and Red, it was one of the least complicated shows to book. I remember toward the end of the night, Dan, I heard you saying, "I want to marry this show."
Yeah, I mean, basically that was true. There wasn't a lot of drama. There wasn't a lot of, and we don't have most of the guys that work on the shows. I have real good egos and they know what they're there to do and whatever. Occasionally, you run into someone who is like what they refer to as a 30-miler, and that is they don't want to do a job within 30 miles of their house. Feeling that it ruins their their reputation. To which you usually say, what reputation at this point? But the fact was that everybody was open, everything, to all that stuff. And I know that what we tried to do was cut back on one or two matches so that we could give the other matches a longer time in the ring and let them unfold. And I think that one of the things from watching the show as much as and because there wasn't a lot of craziness going on, I got a chance to really watch the show. The guys, the high flyers, are getting some really good spots and some matches to work stuff in. We have a couple of characters like Omar Slam Duncan and Whiskey Fist McIntosh, which are really developing as characters. Hell Kid, who was a heel for the first year, turned babyface, and actually I think he's much better that way from watching him on that Saturday night. And then we had some really good solid wrestling, and I got a chance. What I usually do on any kind of show that I work on, whether it's a wrestling show, a comedy show, a theater thing, or whatever, I always like to stand by the front door and thank people for coming when they leave and kind of get a feeling what they thought of the show. And it's really nice. It feels really good to be standing there when the show is over and fans are pounding on the ring mats chanting MPW, MPW. Yeah. And you go, okay, so this is, things are working well. So I think that, nothing's ever a go, and we're not going to sit around and tell you, hey, we're going to be on ESPN soon, and we're going to be national, and we're going to be doing all this, and we're going to be doing pay-per-views and all this stuff. We're just your friendly little neighborhood store on the corner right now, and we're very happy just to be that way and to do okay right now and to develop more.
Are you suggesting you're doing pay-per-views?
No.
Because I'll have to get a haircut for every show now. Maybe I'll wear a suit too.
Well, I guarantee you, if we ever were to do an pay-per-view, I'll make sure that 3 or 4 times they cut to you in a close-up.
It's like talking to Mary Lou while you guys are doing the show, huh? We're always talking, so it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, probably talking non-wrestling too.
Yeah, I don't think you guys want that on your pay-per-views.
So Dan, when is the next show?
I don't have the thing in front of me. It's in June.
Okay.
June 18th, isn't it?
June 18th, I believe it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
June 18th. Yeah, June 18th. What we're doing is that we had a guy that worked as a manager in the early days of MPW, like 10, 12 years ago. And he also worked behind the scenes, named Zoogs Rift. And we talked about him once on the show before. He worked as the Barbarians manager in the UWF. Was a very nice guy, and he passed away in the last couple months. And we did a 10 count for him in the middle of the ring for the last show. But what we're going to do in the next show is we've been looking for something that we can do once a year. You know, like our version of like Hell in the Cell or something where we could do this match every year in June. And we're basically going to take it really easy. We're going to do an elimination match where you have 4 guys on one side, 4 guys on the other side. Every time someone is pinned, they're eliminated. And the thing is, though, when you get down to the guys on the one team, they in turn wrestle each other then. So at one point, there's only one guy left out of the 8. So we can that way we can also there's less matches on the show, so that way we can spend more time with this match. It's going to take a while for the story to unfold, so we can do that. And we're calling it the Zoogs Rift Memorial. So that's what we're going to be doing.
So it's kind of a Torneo Cibernetico meets whatchamacallit.
Yeah. It's
no, not Parejas, Ruleta de la Muerte type.
Yeah, Ruleta de la Muerte is more what I was thinking of there. Yeah, so and we've done those before a long time ago, and I like the psychology that goes with it. I like the fact to give a match something like 30, 40 minutes to unfold that way and see how it works. So we're going to be doing that, and it should be a lot of fun. And there's some other matches on the show, and it'll just be a good time. So if anybody's out here in the SoCal area and they want to check it out, they can go to mpwwrestling.com. And you can also just find stuff on there. And there's a great picture of me looking just annoyed on there, too, just always.
We wouldn't have you any other way, Daniel.
Which I think that as an out front commissioner or booker or remember when we did Cal International, I didn't want to even be called a commissioner because there were so many commissioners in the 90s doing that stuff. I used to say they would call me the booker, and I would just do it that way. But I think it's one of the things to me is that no offense to Teddy Long, but Teddy Long is always so happy when he comes out and makes matches and whatever.
Yeah.
And I always think that I always look at the guy out front who's the commissioner or the promoter or whatever is more like John Cleese in Fawlty Towers. He's just annoyed by everything.
That's great.
Yeah.
And everything is there to annoy him. So there's a little bit of that when I do it. There's a little bit of my father also in there. So whenever I'm out there, I always try to look really, really serious. Plus also, it does help on some situations because what I like to do with any kind of title matches, I like to come down, take the belt, hang on to the belt, and I give it to the referee at the end to award to the winner. So that way also, it doesn't hurt to react a little bit when you see things like, I don't believe, oh God, what a hit that was, or that kind of stuff. So, so I mean, it's basically, again, it's really old school. It's real simple. We could have done a match, that had all this other stuff in it, but I always love the elimination matches because elimination matches, and especially I like better when they do 3-way and 4-way dance matches when they're done elimination style because I'm so tired of the steal the pin. Every match ends that way.
I agree with you. I think the steal the pin is just a hair shy silly of the whole concept of the cage match where the first person to run away wins.
Yeah. Exactly.
I hate cage matches that do that too. So.
Here, I agree.
Well, of course, in the old days, the cage match was something different altogether. Nowadays, the cage is just there to allow people to climb into it.
Yeah.
It seems like,
Exactly.
Well, and originally the idea with the WWF style cage match with the escape was, it wasn't escaping the cage, it was you beat your opponent so badly until you can just walk away and leave.
Well, yeah, that's how they used to do until like the mid '80s. All the cage matches I remember seeing in the WWF, always ended with the guy pinning somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
And I always kind of liked that better than the whole. I mean, I know it was set up so that you could do some sort of fluke ending or protect somebody or whatever, but I just liked the idea the cage was there just so that you settle the score, and it'd be settled by a pinfall as opposed to somebody is faster climbing out of the cage.
Well, I wonder.
Yes, exactly. And then the heels would be all in a fit because they're in this cage and they can't escape. And they usually make some pretense of trying to get away.
Yeah, exactly.
But the worst part of a cage match that drives me absolutely nuts is having somebody rip the door off or rip the side of the cage off. It's just so cheesy.
Well, you can go through the book of cliches for cage matches. There's slamming. Somebody slams the door on the head of the face going through the cage. There's somebody climbs over the top of the cage to interfere. There's somebody under the ring who gets into the cage. I mean, there's all these different cliches that they've done 1,000 times, and I just think that if they would just do the cage match as the cage match. I mean, I remember how they used to... Hang on a second. Sorry about that. I've been a little under the weather this week. But what they used to... The whole idea was you would oftentimes see things where, like, you would take in the East Coast, Bruno. If Bruno was in a cage with somebody, he would... they would fight, and then about 15, 20 minutes into it, like, Bruno would run him into all four sides of the cage, and they would go down, and then he would either pin them or he would go over and tell them to open the door and let him out.
Right.
Which made perfect sense.
Yeah, that's a much more decisive finish,
Yeah, and I think it worked with the Bruno persona.
Yeah.
With all, that Bruno is getting his revenge, but he's being honorable.
Right.
Not taking advantage of the guy once he's unconscious.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Which really came out wrong when I just said that.
Oh, we're back to time jack again, aren't we? Yeah. But also, here's the thing. Also, if you're going to do cages these days, and just in cages in general, I know they do them this way in the WWE, but I'm not a big fan of blood. But I think with the cage match, there should be blood. That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Because if you bang the guy's head into the cage and he doesn't get cut open, I mean, doesn't it kind of expose what the cage match isn't?
Having said that, though, one of the best cage matches I ever saw was, I believe, 94 with Bret Hart against Owen Hart. And that had no blood, and that was about a 35, 40-minute match. No blood, but that was a tremendous cage match.
Well, that's because the cage, in that case, this is true, you can do this. The cage was meant just to keep them in and force them to wrestle, which is what they could do. Right. So that's what they did. But there's some of those cage, and the other cliche that I always hate is both guys their feet hit the ground at the same time.
Have they ever really done that many times, though? I mean, maybe in WWE they did it a few times in the last decade or so, but
yeah, I mean they didn't do that much in advance.
I remember Hogan and Orndorff.
Well, the Hogan Orndorff one was the best one because it was one of those original ones, and I think in a way, even though it wasn't a cage match, they did a couple Royal Rumbles where people landed simultaneously.
Yeah,
and I think that
one was an accident.
Yeah, and I think in many cases it took away from that. Then they turn around and they say, well, go back in the cage again. Well, that's
why that was supposed to be the decisive match, and they use it as an angle for another decisive match.
Exactly.
Well, Ryan, I know we were going to touch base on another LA legend this week.
Absolutely. Somebody who's had his fair share of cage matches in LA.
The Golden Greek, or the Maniac, if you like to call him, John Tolis.
Yeah, an incredible, probably the best heel, I would say, arguably in the history of Southern California wrestling. Would you say?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, from our day remembers the Tolis Freddie Blassie feud, and he cut such great promos, just ire-inspiring promos.
Yeah, and he was, I think Dan, it might have been you or Dan mentioned that, when he had sort of first came on the scene, he was kind of like a, handsome kind of guy and spoke very eloquently. He wasn't a screaming, raging lunatic, and he was a very tough, classy heel, but he wasn't an out of control kind of guy until he had his head shaved.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember that so well because that the first babyface turn I ever saw was Shibuya turning in '72. But the first heel turn I ever saw was Tolis, and I remember it shocking me because I remember the week before, like he had the handsome baby face, and he'd cut these really stoic, interviews, and then as soon as he got his head shaved by Victor Rivera, it's like he goes on the TV, the very next week, like he snapped. And one of the things I loved the most was when he was a babyface, there wouldn't be a ton of smiling. And his mouth wouldn't be open all that much. He just had this kind of, almost like Indian chief stare, like a cold stare.
Yeah.
But when he got his head shaved, his mouth would be wide open in his interviews so you could see all the gold in his teeth to add a little kind of garish aura to him. And he would drool, too. That's what I mean, he was just great at doing a turn like he snapped.
Well, when he was a face because like you were saying, I think after he was always the Golden Greek, and then once he lost his hair is when they added the Maniac tag to it, because he had snapped. And there was a short period that he did turn face again, after because didn't they do some sort of angle where he lost to Loser Leave Town? That's when he came back as managing Mr. California.
Oh, did he lose a Loser Leave Town in '74? What I remember was he was feuding with Edouard Carpentier late in '74, and then in '75, it was him. He and Greg Valentine were teaming.
Yeah.
And that's when he called Valentine his $1 million baby.
Yep.
And they turned face together. I think it was against Humperdinck. And then Greg Valentine turned heel on him.
Well, yeah, what they did was, it wasn't so much they turned face, it was more of a heel versus heel match. And what happened was Valentine turned on, they had the first match, and then the fans would cheer for Tolis and Valentine over the Blondes at that point because they hated Humperdinck and they hated the Blonde so much. But when they went in for the second match, that's when Valentine turned on Tolis. And it was really kind of an interesting turn because, it's the kind of thing, the way it was set up, there was nothing upcoming that way. All of a sudden, that Saturday, Tolis was a face. But he was like one of the original Stone Cold Steve Austin faces, and that was, he still did everything he did before, except he was doing it to the bad guys now.
Yeah.
And the fans, maybe it was simplistic or just the way it was done, but it was like, okay, well, now he's wrestling other guys that we hated, and now we're happy about that. There wasn't they didn't really lay a lot of track for it. They just did it. They just pulled the trigger on it. And he was still the same Tolis. He wasn't as crazy, but he would still come out and just basically run them down to no end. But it's only when he was the Maniac, he had that hopping thing he used to do too, where he would jump up and down on in the middle of the ring, and it looked like he was going crazy and holding the ear. Because he always loved to hold the ear after he got hit in the head.
Miguel Cicluna style.
Yeah, Miguel Cicluna style. But I often wondered if they put the Maniac tag on him maybe because he was getting older at that point, and maybe he couldn't do a lot of like the knee drop off the top rope or a lot of the stuff that he used to do. So they kind of made some alterations so that way he could work longer.
Now, do any of you remember the time when he held the America's Tag Team title with pretty much a jobber? Do you remember the
Mondo Lopez?
Mondo Lopez,
superstar.
Yeah, superstar Mondo Lopez. Did they actually get the belts? I thought they had like a chase for the belts, but didn't quite get them.
I thought they actually won the title.
Maybe they did. Maybe I'm remembering incorrectly.
They might have. If they did, it was for a very short time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember because I remember my brother Larry being so amazed that Mondo Lopez Superstar actually held a title out here.
Well, they had those guys. We talked about this before too. They had those guys that if somebody left or if they needed a spot to be filled, they would take guys like Irish Mickey Doyle or Reno Tuifuli or Butcher Brannigan, and they might be jobbing on TV and in every match or whatever at the Olympic, but all of a sudden, or Jay the Alaskan York, all of a sudden they would wind up getting a push of sorts to fill in the spot, the hole that was missing when so-and-so left.
I remember when Reno Tuifuli got the push. They even gave him, did they give him the Beat the Champ title? I'm trying to remember.
I don't think they did. I don't think he ever held a title, but he got this push, and actually they wound up putting him in a nice little series of matches with Jay York, where you had two guys who were local, who were undercard guys, and you could actually get a little steam out of a little mini feud because Jay York had that bullwhip with him at that time.
That's right. And Reno Tuifuli was a really... What's that?
Did he have a name for his bullwhip?
No, he didn't call it Shoe Baby or anything like that.
It wasn't Miss Betsy.
Reno Tuifuli was a really cool babyface. He had a real badass look to him, but I really enjoyed him. I liked when they gave him the push.
Really? Shocking.
Well, it was funny because he was an Islander guy, and I don't think he ever worked heel out here, did he?
No, he didn't. He was a babyface straight.
And he had that look. He could have played a heel really easily, I think, but,
Oh, he looked badass, but where Tolis always looked stoic, Reno Tuifuli was always, like, grinning away like he was having a good time kicking ass.
Yeah. He's definitely a heel in other places. I think in Florida and...
I'm sure he
Florida,
was.
Georgia, like maybe Florida, Georgia, and Texas, I think, because I know Gary Hart managed him a couple times.
Yeah, because I remember also one time in San Bernardino, the ringer announcer introduced him and also mentioned that his wife had a baby that week. And, yeah, exactly. And of course he won the match because back in the old days they used to do that. Nowadays, your wife just had twins. You're going to lose for 3 weeks, in your hometown. But they did that. I mean, of course, he was already a babyface, but he became even a bigger babyface after that. So, but I remember how they announced. They announced that his wife had a baby, and everybody, oh, kill him! No.
I was going to impress you guys with this trivia question. I was going to ask you if you guys had any idea who the very first tag team champions of Stampede Wrestling were. And my answer was, by doing a little research, were the Toles brothers. And 1958.
Really?
And before the show started, I was chatting with Smith Hart. And I mentioned to him that we were going to go ahead and talk about that. And he messages me back and says, wait a minute. He says, the Toles brothers were about the 10th team to hold the tag team title, and he starts reeling all these teams. The Mills brothers were the first team, then the Kalbakoffs, and then the Kangaroos, and then the Smith brothers, and then the this and that, and then ultimately the Toles brothers. So I would have really blown that trivia question, but I had good intentions, though.
Well, yeah, actually, I was kind of surprised because I wouldn't think. When did the Stampede belts originate then?
Well, they probably weren't called the Stampede.
They probably called something else at that point because I mean,
it wasn't Stampede until late '60s, maybe.
Yeah, it had to be that but the Toluses held titles all throughout the '60s, especially the early '60s. So and especially a lot up in Canada where they were so popular. What a great tag team that was.
What reminds me of something that was kind of funny is that I interviewed Dutch Savage. He seemed really angry that title histories online and everywhere didn't list all of his tag title reigns with Jimmy Snuka from the Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That he was very insistent that they have the record for holding the same title the most number of times. Angry. He's like, I don't care what any of those title histories say. We held the title more than anyone else ever.
But you know what they did? But Dutch Mantell and Jimmy Snuka, they were dominant in Portland.
Well, I mean, I think if you had to say, if you say to Dutch, probably the reason why is because most of your fans can't write, so there was no reason to. No one wrote it down. Any Dutch, but
most of them can write their name, and that's about it. And beyond that,
Bix, what did you think of from the times you talked to Dutch Savage?
I don't know. He kind of serious guy. It seemed like he got me almost easily annoyed with certain things. Like there was one point where I forgot what it was. He starts saying like, "Did you know?" He says he brought up something about Jimmy Snuka. It was off the same thread of conversation. And he's like, "Did you know that Jimmy Snuka was?" It was something like, "Did you know that he was a fire dancer when he was young in Fiji?" Something like that. And I was like, "Oh no, I didn't." And then he starts answering. Then he starts like asking these increasingly bizarre, "Did you know that Jimmy Snuka?" questions. He's like, "Did you know that Jimmy Snuka could dunk a basketball with his ears?" For some reason, I thought I wasn't paying attention or something, and he got angry at me. It was a very strange. It was.
Oh, you should have said. Bix, you should have said. Also, there's a lot of things we know that Jimmy Snuka can do, but not all of them should be made public.
Actually, so part of the problem with that interview, if you ever listen to it, is that for whatever reason, was having a very bad problem with Skype calling his phone, and in lieu of trying to figure out what was wrong and rescheduling the interview, I just kept asking it when he couldn't hear me, and then edited out all of the dead spots.
See, because the reason I was asking is because I've always wondered because whenever I've read anything, I had never heard, I'll have to listen to it now, but I've never heard a Dutch Savage interview. Whenever I've read anything, even his replies on paper sound annoyed, And I kept thinking about, a guy who was, I would say he's very professional, wouldn't you, Bix? From what I read and everything, he's a pro, he's an old school guy, whatever. I don't know if Jimmy Snuka was having as much problems as he did later on at that time, but I just thought that would be a weird personality-wise combination.
Yeah.
Very much so.
If I could touch one more thing on John Tolos, I would say that the feud, the Blasty versus Tolos feud, really, I mean, if Blasty could be elevated anymore, that did it. I mean, he was already, a mega star, by the time the feud really climaxed with Tolos, but the Tolos feud just really took him to this other level. Both of them, actually.
Yeah.
But was just
it was the biggest high of their careers, but it was also the biggest high of Los Angeles wrestling. Nowhere to go there but down.
Yeah, it was the pinnacle.
Yep, that's true.
It was.
And I remember when Tolos came back in 1980, when the territory was slowly dying, he came back initially as a babyface again, turned heel, I believe, on Ron Starr, if I remember correctly. And what just blew me away seeing him in the early 80s was, man, he was in better shape than most of the guys he was wrestling.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he really was. I mean, even when we'd see him at Cauliflower Alleys, he always was in impeccable shape. And I know that when I would drive up to the freeway from here to go to work onto the Ventura Freeway, I would sometimes see him, and this was maybe mid-90s, late 90s, even into 2000. I would see him jogging up and down the street.
Yeah, I heard he was like, I heard he loved doing long-distance running, that whole thing. I mean...
Yeah. And what you could usually do is, if you wasn't, this is where you show what a real... what a real great sophisticated fan you are. You roll the window down, you go, "Golden Greek!" And he goes, "Yeah!" That shit keeps going.
Class, yeah.
Hey, Golden Greek! Yeah!
Yes. See how he would react if you yelled, "Hey, that's Savage!" No, he was amazing wrestler.
Yeah, and also to say a lot from his brother too. His brother was only out here for a short period of time at one point, but they were just an impeccable tag team, and we always joked about what was it always. Right brother Chris, right brother John. You know, that was always their big tagline they always used, and they were one of the. No, they were one of the best brother teams of all time.
Yeah, you didn't mess with the Bulls brothers. You didn't.
Yeah.
Well, no better way to end the podcast on a John Tolis note, because of our ending signature line.
Oh, wait, hang on 1 second.
Well, I wanted to mention something though, since we're talking about it, that John Tolis and that era of LA, that I had mentioned to Kurt that Johnny Legend is now selling Geekmania again on CD.
Yes.
And how could I forget?
Yes. With which all sorts of which is LA interviews from that era mixed with other pop culture stuff, and I have never heard it, so I ordered it. I have not gotten it yet, but I am looking forward to it.
Do you have Alias the Champ, Bix?
No.
You got to get that also.
Yeah, think about it. But
yeah.
I figured just get this for now.
Johnny will send. He's trying to wait to see if Johnny will send him his DVDs. we know how this works, huh, Bix?
Rockin'. Totally rockin'. So if you're listening, Johnny, get it sent out, all of them.
But I have a real quick question. Was it for Fredo?
Uh-huh.
Fredo, did you push record?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, good.
I did. I know when the that person starts talking that we're recording.
Okay, because we redeemed ourselves from last time show. Okay, I just want to make sure.
That's right. We will forever remember the Phantom podcast.
Yeah, we messed it up because we decided to ask the same questions again. So
yeah,
it sounded a little weird. Like,
and speaking of record, make sure Fredo, you make sure you have that TiVo set for Impact Wrestling tonight.
Oh, God. It already aired.
Right.
I did.
Not
only did I not record it, I also took my cable box outside and hit it with a hammer to make sure there was no way accidentally I could record it.
Oh man,
is it still really bad?
What's that?
Is it still really bad, Impact Wrestling?
It's gotten much worse, actually.
Oh, it has? Okay.
Yeah.
If that's possible.
Well, because they said wrestling matters, so I thought, wrestling matters. Maybe they'll add a bit to it.
Well, not to them. Not to them. Wrestling does matter, but not to them. That's the problem.
Oh, they have these radio commercials now where it's like, oh, the other guys, they say they're entertainment. If I wanted entertainment, I'd go watch a DVD. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
if I wanted wrestling, I watch Wrestlelicious.
Well, on that note, we must sign off. Thank you. What's that?
Must we?
We must. We must.
Oh, I thought you said Boss Tweed. I said we can't get on that subject now. Okay. On the next edition of Slammin' Fan, we'll be talking about Boss Tweed.
One of the great heels of the 1920s, yeah.
That's right, yes, exactly. That would actually make a really fascinating subject.
That'd be a great character. That would be a great character, a guy named Boss Tweed.
That would be awesome.
He'd be like Boss Hogg, but instead of dressed up all, countrified, he'd be wearing tweed jackets.
Yeah, exactly. With patches on the elbows.
So, 2 weeks. Tune in. We're going to be talking Boss Tweed and something to do about wrestling, too. So, thank you, all you cats, for listening. Thank you, all you cats present on the conference call. You guys rock. And remember, if you're walking down the street in Southern California and you see a bright light streaking across the sky, it is not a shooting star. It is a heavenly handful of
Monzel's powder.
Rockin'. We will see you guys in 2 weeks.
On another episode of Time Jack.